Some people were wondering about what it means to do reading strategies in the context of a music class. And although it's totally possible that you would have students reading traditional text, printed texts that have words and paragraphs and pages and sentences, and these strategies would apply then too, I imagine that most of the time you have them reading music. And so these reading strategies still apply, and in fact they might even seem more natural and a better fit for some of these other kinds of alternative text, or a broader definition of text than just the textbooks or the novels that we think of students reading in their other classes. So I want to make it clear that we're talking about a pretty broad definition of text here. Like, the text could be the basketball court, with the players each being different sort of symbols and the relationships between them having meaning about what's happening on the court. Obviously, sheet music is a kind of text, and there are ways to approach reading it, and there are strategies to use while reading it, and there are ways to focus your attention while you're playing, or while you're listening, or while you're just looking at this new text. So for example, most musicians have a routine that they go through when they first get a piece of music, depending on what they have to do with it. If they have to stand up and sight sing it in an audition, they probably check the key signature, check the time signature, look at the composer, and each individual maybe does that in a different order, but we're all kind of doing the same sorts of things. Those are things that we might do naturally after years of practicing them, and the idea is that we would make those things that are natural to us explicit to students. So we would say, I'm going to hand you a piece of sheet music, and the first thing that I want you to do is look at the composer's name so that you can guess what style the piece is going to be played in. That might be something that you have always done without thinking about it, because making your expert process as a musician explicit for students is part of what you do all the time. And if that's the case, then that's wonderful. We just want to encourage you to keep doing that, and to do that in more places whenever students are interacting with text, because we do have evidence that if students are strategic with texts outside of the traditional academic printed texts, with words and sentences and paragraphs, if they have ways of approaching texts that are outside of those, that it does eventually translate over. So you can say that you're supporting the reading that students are doing in science and social studies if you're really explicit with the reading that they're doing in music class. So the texts vary by discipline, but the idea that you need to have an approach and a purpose for every text that you interact with is consistent. And the more students have practice with texts that are interesting and engaging for them, the more transfer they'll demonstrate when they go to the different classes. So if your use of these strategies is only on sheet music, doing music as its own text, then that's completely fine. We're not asking you to stop the music for a moment to read an article instead. That wouldn't make sense for your students as budding musicians, and it doesn't make sense for them as readers either, because this kind of reading instruction is actually even more supportive of their reading instruction in other classes than stopping music to read a current event instead would be. So if this feels familiar, great. Please keep doing it, and thank you for the work you've already done in this area. And if it feels slightly unfamiliar, we invite you to try it out and let us know how it goes.